So, oh, everything from here will be heard on the replay.
Okay,
Okay. So,
that's
how did we connect?
uh I sent an email through to you
Hmm.
to come on, and then I got a separate request on Facebook from Monique
Okay.
to come on the show, which was interesting because that's under my married name, whereas the email I sent you is from like my name,
What was the other name?
Angelucci.
I can't remember either one. I see so many, I can't remember.
I know,
But
I know.
no, I
It's
just
like a
wondered.
world.
So that's weird. So you actually reached out, and we reached out. I know it's not linear, but basically at the same time. And here
Yeah, it
we,
was like a weird part.
yeah, cool.
So yeah, it was really
So
interesting.
unless Monique's on here and you have the link and you want to come on, that would be cool. Uh, I don't know why Monique. I do know Monique very well, and I respect her. She's a very much, maybe even, I've never thought about it, but a very close soul sister. So I respect her, judgment, her discernment. But why did you want to come on? Did you have a story to tell?
Yeah, I have a story to tell. But actually, like, um, when I first saw your show, I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when my spiritual awakening like really just kind of kicked into gear, and I made a decision then, like, ooh, I'm gonna like I love the content and I love how authentic you are, and you're just a genuine person, and so I had to follow you, and I kind of made a decision back then that yeah, I was going to come and chat to you one day.
Yeah, no, no time. And
Yeah, but I didn't know what it was about, and like at the time, no idea, and but I kind of knew that this was going to happen at some stage, but
right,
at the time, no idea why.
right,
So
right. Yeah. So you've been in Melbourne for a while.
yeah, I've lived in Melbourne my whole life. So I grew up here. I've travelled a lot, but yeah, I've lived here my whole life.
We're gonna have to revisit the whole COVID thing because it seems like Melbourne was the epicenter of it all. But let's go back.
Yeah,
Let's go back a little bit. I'm grateful that you've been watching the show for a long time, so you know the great question.
yes.
I say great because I'm still wondering if it is. But yeah, have you always been this weird, or did you have a wake up experience?
I think, like, if I look back, I love this question, by the way. If I look back, I can see that it's always been like it's a slow evolution to one point, but I had that big crescendo moment. And that was like, that shook everything up, which happens to a lot of people. Um, but, from a young age, like, yeah, I started interacting with spirit when I was 7, and I was terrified of that. And like physically interacting with spirit.
Really?
Yeah.
So what was that like? And the reason I ask these questions, is because people are coming into this now. I mean, somebody might see it, right?
Yeah.
So many people that have come out, they always say, I had to come out if I can help one person. And so I look at it that way. So it
Yeah.
happened to you at 7 years old. What was that like? Did you wake up one day and you were seeing things you hadn't seen?
It started with like I would be like tapped on the shoulder. So I would be, Mum call us for dinner, everyone would be at the table. I was still playing or, doing whatever I was doing. And then I'd get a tap, tap, tap on my shoulder. And I'd look around, but there's no one there. And then or I'd be in bed and I'd get like this big whack across the back with what felt like a really heavy book. And at first I just thought it was my sister, like annoying me when I went to bed, but there's no one else in the room. And I was petrified, just terrified of the dark growing up. But then like that kind of settled down a little bit. And We just thought the house was haunted. Kind of didn't
So
realize
you
that.
told your family members what was happening? Were they experiencing anything like that?
Um, my sister, like she said that she did as well,
Hmm.
not to the extent of me, but yeah, she said she did as well. And um, like my parents kind of didn't know what to do about that, and not something that they were really into. And I used to get in trouble because I was scared of, going to bed. And mum used to say, well, if someone's in the room, just tell them to leave. And I was like, okay then. So then I kind of knew what to do. And so I just kind of was very firm, like as a 7-year-old, no, go away.
That was
So
your mom speaking was not human. That was intuition or whatever you want to call it.
yeah, yeah. So which I'm really grateful for, because that kind of gave me a lot of confidence to interact with the spirit world. And like knowing as a 7-year-old that you can have a difference, and you can command like spirit to go away if you don't want them there, because we have free
Right,
will.
right.
So
You have sovereignty. You have power. You have you.
yeah, I get to
Yeah,
choose.
yeah.
And we get to choose in every moment. And so like that whole lesson and that whole education piece for me started like really young.
Mm. So you said you had physical interactions. What does that mean?
Mhm. So I could feel them like touch me, or hit me, or something to that effect. And then things would go flying across the room. Um, yeah, very interesting. You see things in the kitchen go flying off the bench, and it's really scary.
I've seen that, but not not like you, not from that age. Um, yeah. So was your family accepting of this, and you know how did it all go down? How did it evolve?
Not really. Like, my mum was a nurse, and she's very intuitive, but she doesn't, I think, acknowledge that for herself. It's just all coincidences for her. And my dad was a tradesman, and like very practical, very hardworking person. So whatever was going on for me was just so left of field from my parents. And
Mm.
yeah, I just kind of kept it all under wraps a little bit.
So was there a point where you shut it down?
Um, Not really. I know I just kind of learnt to live with it. And like I had all these clear abilities, and I'm very intuitive, I'm telepathic, and um, I just assumed that everyone had these abilities, and that if someone was being like mean to someone else, like, kids picking on each other at school or something, I just thought like they were kind of callous, like knowing how the other person would feel at the other end of that. Like, I didn't know that I was different and I could perceive things at a different level. No idea. I just assumed it was normal, that we all could do it. And I
Right.
didn't really understand like, that wasn't the case probably until, I don't know, I was maybe a teenager, and that kind of level of perception was different for me.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I think a lot of people can. I mean, there is that point where you realize what. Yeah, like the empath. You could call it empath. You could say a lot of things, but I
Mm.
mean, did you ever have a period like a lot of people, went into their early adulthood, married, kids, job, insurance, mortgages, da 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 da, da and lose sight?
I actually brought it in more. So like my 20s, I was a very career focused kind of person. So in my 20s, I only got married in my late 30s. So, 30s or 40s, maybe early 40s, something like that. And, but in my 20s, I was, this really career focused person. And I, it turned into a bit of a game because I was so perceptive. And it entertained me, and it gave me like this fun element to the corporate world. So I just brought more of it in. I didn't kind of pull away from it. And I remember I had a manager of mine, he said to me, he was just amazed. He's like, you have this really good instinct for what's going to happen. And he said, you're like 6 months ahead of the game. And how come, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I can't really have this conversation with him. He's not going to understand.
Did he utilize that?
No, not really. He had
Okay.
his framework that he wanted us all to kind of conform to.
Hmm.
And I pushed back a lot with him.
Hmm.
And challenging the system that he wanted us to work within, and because
What
whatever I was doing was working, so
what
I
year
didn't
was
want to
it?
work.
What year was this?
This was probably 2013, I
Okay.
think.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
2013. Yeah. So like that was cool. And I was this like natural manifester. So I could, bring that into work as well. And I found out when I was at the gym one day about The Secret. And I'm thinking, I just got really curious. I'm like, okay, what's this book, The Secret? And so I read it and I'm like, oh, okay, I already do all this stuff. I'm like, okay, now there's a name for it. How good is this? Like manifesting.
Mainstream. It's going
Yeah.
mainstream. So you have followed like a innate part of you through the whole thing, right? That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. And
And I
I
mean,
trust
like,
my guidance.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying I trust my guidance, and
Right
whatever direction I'm kind of led in, I just go with the flow.
now, throughout your life, have you had like experiences? Not there's yes or no, right or wrong, whatever. Just trying to get a feel for your experience. Um, Galactic, elemental, other off universe, whatever uh, aspects presenting themselves to you beyond the argument of is it them or me, but like have you had those types of experiences?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean,
Like,
have you met faces of the universe? Have you Do you have a connection to galactic or elemental or any other type of energy, any other type of entity, a dark, light, or is it just one voice?
I have like a team of like beings that I've built a relationship with, and they're all different. And part of what like the training with them, because I allow myself to be trained by them, because when I kind of went when like my awakening started and I didn't know what it was and I wanted some help, because I trusted my intuition so much, I just went further into it and I started connecting with my guides and my guidance. And there's this whole, it's like a team of light beings and there's hundreds of them
Mm-hmm.
available like at any time to help with
Mm-hmm.
anything.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many different aspects to that. And but it's noticing what we want help with and kind of reaching into that space and making a connection and doing it in a way that resonates like with very deeply, and you've got that heart connection with them.
Mm. Yeah.
But they train me on some interesting aspects of the electromagnetics of who we are and what's happening in the space around us and how we interact with it and how shadow energy kind of sneaks into our field and what it is and how we notice it, and using free will to make a choice. And every moment has so much choice available to all of us. And that's like really like what my training's been about with them.
Okay. Can you elaborate more? Like,
Yeah.
make it more human. I mean, I thought that was a great explanation, but like, what's that feel like right now? I mean, there's been so much so much stuff going on since like what, the summer, and yeah. How does that look to you, having that information and then experiencing it?
So I notice, like for me, it's about noticing and noticing how I feel. And so if I feel, and a lot of people talk about getting triggered, and in moments like that's shadow energy essentially. So for me, any lower vibrational feeling that comes up, it doesn't matter under what circumstances, is shadow. In some way, shape, or form, it's shadow energy. And in that moment, I have a choice. I can either indulge that kind of feeling of getting frustrated, getting angry, or I can make a choice to clear it and see things from a higher perspective in the moment. And like it takes a lot to be that aware, like throughout the day. Even when you're driving and someone cuts you off in traffic, like that's a trigger. And but for that to happen, there's something in my field that allows it because I'm creating all of my experiences. So somewhere I allow people to cut me off in traffic. So I'll clear that energy so that I don't have that experience next time I go for a drive.
Yeah, yeah.
So like for me, like how this kind of started, um, I had a, and this was like Dark Night of the Soul, and I had no idea what that even was. And my higher senses, they came online like really just, they amplified. And I started waking up with, different song playing in my head every day. I'm like, ooh, what's this about? And it was interesting, and I had dreams I was being taught like in like classroom kind of setting, and I know now that that's like the learning halls of Lord Cthulhu. And it was really interesting, but I didn't know what was going on, so that's when I reached out to my guides. And then that was kind of like pre-training for my awakening, is like building that relationship with spirit. It was probably about like I think 8 months before, this big crescendo moment. And when that happened, because like manifesting was such a huge part of my life, and I found myself in this, situation. My dad died unexpectedly, and like that was pretty tough. And then I had like my family, like fighting over, the wheel stuff going missing from his house. There was a lot of anger. It was just really like deceptive
What
environment, and I tried not rocking the boat.
what year was this?
This was 2018.
Okay, all right. So we were all ramping up for this time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's it's always good to hear, like where you're talking to someone who had the higher perspective, as so many of us did, and all this human stuff was happening at the same
Yeah,
time, right? Uh, people talk about the Great Divide, but it was there a long time ago, wasn't it? You know what I mean?
yeah, absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
like, you're obviously very sensitive and lit. What do you think's going on now? Like the last 2 months, 3 months, 4 months have been absolute initiation, interrogation, emancipation. I mean, it's like for every bit of expansion, layers were just getting ripped off. Do you have any explanation of that?
I think the energies like of the earth, we need to kind of match them. And as she's shifting, as Mother Gaia is shifting, and the whole frequency of the planet is kind of leveling up, we need to too. And we're kind of forced to, not forced, that's probably not the right word, but um, we're nudged to notice what's going on with us and to make a choice. Like, do we want to raise our frequency, or do we want to stay where we are? Because staying where we are like doesn't really cut the mustard, and we can feel that. We feel that really deeply. Like we need to let go of some stuff, and how that happens for for everyone is so different. And that's the fun part, like for me, like how this unfolds for everyone around us, I think is so beautiful.
Do you ever get like in the recent weeks just rocked where the energy just collapses you?
I had like the last couple of weeks, like last week, I was doing a virtual retreat, and just the energies, like I'm, very sensitive, and anyway, and like as people are sharing, and like there's some emotional moments there, um, I just burst into tears. I'm like, oh, okay. Just feeling like way too much. But I know it's connected to something deeper. And I know that there's a point of resonance with whatever story they're telling that's kind of triggering something within me that needs to shift. And that was like that for, I think, 2 weeks. And it was really intense. So for me, it's about noticing. And it's about noticing what those points of origin are like within me that kind of make me feel a particular way.
Mm.
And so, like some of those origin points, like if I don't get a particular memory coming up, I know it's from a different kind of place. It could be a past life experience, or it could be like some ancestral junk that I'm holding on to. Um, and I know that I need to clear it out.
Mm.
So as disruptive as it is, like I'm so grateful, because then I hold more light, and the foundation of light that I build is just increases.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's been like in the last few weeks uh, a frequent amount of sudden and immediate changes? And I'm really speaking energetically, but how that looks at the human level as well. Um, Without notice, just like bam, 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 bam. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that has been. I think, yeah, it affects, you see it show up in people differently, but you notice kind of a pattern through it all.
Mm. Mm. So, as I believe, people are, obviously, we have to like break through different levels. Some people get there first, other times the other people do. But like, are you going through the motions of life now? And I say that with all reverence, where you're really commanding from the multidimensional perspective and embodiment of the soul. Like we're beyond religious cliches and all that. Like it's just kind of happening. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, yeah. And like 2020 and 2021, like living in Melbourne, like that was a really good training ground. Like it was very challenging as well, but it was a really good training ground for me to like put that stuff into practice. So I'm really grateful for that.
Were you in Melbourne, the city, or a suburb, or what?
Yeah, in one of the suburbs.
Okay. And how was that? Did you have like kids in the house?
Oh, my husband and I, we don't have kids, so
Okay.
we are the children in our relationship as well, which is
Yes.
nice,
That's cool.
because we don't need to, yeah, we don't need to be serious all the time. Um, so yeah, so that's quite nice. But it was so just like the two of us, and when we were in lockdown and stuff, we could only travel 5Ks from our house. It's still pretty good. Like we had, I don't actually think I was impacted during 2020 and 2021. I was disruptive in some ways, but I think the biggest impact for me was I couldn't go to a restaurant, and I had to go to the supermarket twice a week to buy almond milk, because they had like limits on how much you could purchase.
Wow.
But that was it.
So energetically, though, speaking and going through this with somebody else, even one person, especially with all the emphasis on these connections of polarity. So you're going through this COVID thing, pretty much stuck in the house. I mean,
Mhm.
that's the reality of it, and the oppression of the energy itself. I mean, depending on how you look at it, because it was a big gift. I mean, was your ride through COVID like comical? Was it just like very focused on your presence, like with you and your husband? I mean, were you caught up in the, I guess, the collective energies or the collective story?
Um, oh, I'm affected by like what's going on in the collective. Like I absolutely felt it, and then, but I made a choice like really, really early on that I didn't want that as part of my reality,
Right.
and I made that call, and like my husband's so cool. Like he and I can come to the same conclusions about things, but it's from a different place. And he'll see different information to me, and we kind of come to the same conclusions about how we're going to move forward and how we're going to approach things. And so my way is to, I noticed so many triggers like during that time and what people were going through. And, you know, I had this like warrior within me going like, this is not right. Like I want to stand up. And like my first reaction was like, I got to fight for this. Like this isn't on, and I wasn't having it. And then I kind of took a step back. I'm like, well, that's not actually doesn't change anything. Like, if anything, I buy more into that, the story, and I contribute more to the story of like, of how bad the collective is feeling.
Hmm.
And so for me, like the best thing I can do is pull away from that, like be fully aware of what's going on, but detach myself from that. And then that can have a ripple effect in the collective.
Right.
And then that was really my approach. And then when we had I think this is really funny. When we had, you know, the toilet paper situation in Melbourne.
Melbourne. That was worldwide.
Yeah.
It started in Melbourne. That was the real contagion.
Wow,
That's
it's
crazy. That's
ridiculous.
crazy to think with the expansion and the rapid expansion of both individuals and collectively as time's gone on, especially through that period, that the polar opposite with the duality influence that we could actually worldwide all go out and buy so much toilet paper nobody had any. That's the
That's
craziest. That describes Earth to me, basically. A polarity that's just totally distorted where both run true, because they're both true. We're expanding like crazy during this time, right? I mean, when COVID hit and the toilet paper thing happens, and we literally participate with that.
yeah,
So,
we do. We buy into the story.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's where, and in the same way, like if the whole world gets swept up in this story that, you know, there's this toilet paper scarcity, that's what kind of unfolds. Do you know what I mean?
Which is hilarious, which is absolutely
It
hilarious.
is. It's
But
so
it's
ridiculous.
like, but like this to me describes Earth. The metaphor of that, of the expansion and the toilet paper. This is the kind of polarities we're integrating. Not normal polarities with no distortion. That's tough enough, right? Dark and light, good and evil, whatever, masculine, feminine. But to be in a distorted field of thick, thick density and taking the biggest part of the illusion and the biggest part of what's real and bringing them together in that space, that's profound to me.
Mm,
That's
yeah,
profound.
absolutely.
But it,
Absolutely.
and humorous and so many things. But
It
I think,
is. And so like that toilet paper scenario, like my way of dealing with that is I knew that I bought into that story and I was so like annoyed with myself, and because I had to go and buy toilet paper, and like I'm not going to be able to buy any. And I bought into it. And I asked my guides, like, where am I going to get toilet paper from? And like, I got that information from them, which was
I can't
great.
believe we're talking about toilet paper.
I
I'm kidding.
know.
Keep going. I'm good. It's funny though.
But, well, I got annoyed. Like, I don't need divine intervention to go buy toilet paper. Like, and it just occurred to me, like, what story have I bought into here? Like, this is garbage. I cleared it. I cleared the story. And then I just created a new story, which is every time I go shopping, I can buy whatever I want.
Yeah.
And I sold that to myself, and I like embedded the energy of that in my field, and that's what played out. And I got quite cocky with this little belief that I created that was like against um, like what everyone else was experiencing. And like at one stage, my neighbour got annoyed because she couldn't buy pasta, she couldn't buy air freshener, and she couldn't buy toilet paper. And I said to her, "That's okay. I'm going to shops tomorrow. I'll pick some up for you." And she's like, "I just went. Where are you going?" And I said, "Just around the corner." And she's like, "I just went. They don't have anything." I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm going tomorrow. And I'll pick some up for you." And she's like, "Oh, whatever." And I did. And I'm thinking, "Oh, I hope when I go there tomorrow, like, I can put my money where my mouth is," kind of thing. And but I did. I picked up everything that she needed, everything that was on my shopping list, like I would normally get. And that's how I had fun with it. Like I had fun with like creating new beliefs,
Right, right.
clearing like the energy where I bought into the stories of the collective, like clearing that, shifting it out, creating something better, what I prefer. And like even in these, really like stressful circumstances, like how do I want to experience that? I don't want to experience it from a place of scarcity where it's hard to get basic necessities in life. I don't want to experience it from that perspective.
Yeah, that's powerful. And how many
Mm.
people, I'm not, throwing rocks at anybody, but like all of us, they're not awake or they don't know or whatever the case is. But I think at the level that it counts, call it unconscious, conscious, a combination of, uh, people through that 2 years, they said, this is not my reality. Period. Right here, And I think that's what's happening. We're calling the
Yeah.
shots now. We're calling the
Yeah,
shots.
that's right. And I love that. Like, I love that there's like this moment of empowerment, like, and we're really building to really own like everything that we're experiencing and really getting in touch with our power to um, create, like, in spite of what's playing out around us, like, in
Mm-hmm.
spite of all the noise and in spite of all the stories that we can get kind of brought, like, dragged into. It's about just noticing, like, well, do I want that?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's tough. It can be really tough, especially when it's impacting people around you personally and
Yeah.
you have so much empathy for them. Like, it's difficult. It's a challenge,
And
but
for
it's a
yourself.
fun.
And for yourself. Because
Yeah, absolutely.
there's a lot of personal entanglements, and it doesn't mean you're personally untangling or disconnecting, but it feels like that. It's been a lot of identity deaths, ego deaths, you know, in these last few 2, 3, 4 months. I mean, it's been burning and it's accelerating. But
Mm.
to me, it feels like something's changed. Like it's starting to fall into place without any of that behind us.
Mm.
Raw, the slate's clean. Can't hide anything.
Yeah.
And and then so what do? You start creating, and it's clean, and you're not in a rush, and you're not on a schedule. And there's no
Mm.
deadlines. You just take it one moment at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all I think we can really do is just notice ourselves, and because you can't neglect ourselves either. We can't afford to do that.
That's
And one step at a time.
that's not even a question now. I don't care who it is. You and your
Yeah.
husband. I don't care who it is. You have to you have to make that time for yourself. You have to. When it calls, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah.
It's been a very for all that's happened in the last 3 or 4 months. It's been a powerful, powerful time, and the biggest part of it has been the expansion. I'd like to say it's all over, but I feel like I'm being prepared for something.
Yeah, me too. Well, actually, I have uh, it's like subliminal telepathy. I can have, when I connect with spirit, the higher they are, I kind of go unconscious. And, but I find myself answering a question that I've received from them, like as I'm coming out of it. And I've agreed to something. And this was, I think, in the last week or two, I agreed to something. And I gave my specific instructions of yes, but not in October. So something is going to unfold, and I know something's coming, and I know that it's going to be, it will make a lot more sense, but I don't know when, but I know it wasn't in October. Could be November.
So have you ever done what you just said in front of people?
What do you mean? Connect to spirit?
Well, connect to spirit to the point where you lose apparent consciousness. No, I'm just curious.
I can talk to them. Like, I don't need to, because I'm telepathic, I can have conversation with them, like while I'm cooking dinner, and
Yeah. Or
they
like
might train me.
Yeah, like right now. You can connect to them. Yeah. So I always ask people this, and there's not a perfect answer. I know that, but like, what does that feel like to you, your team? Like you were talking about in the beginning, like just everything kindred to you, Jesus, Buddha, grandmother, whatever it is, and just goes from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Ascended Masters, like I noticed, like when I was doing like work for clients, like they would just start showing up. And, but only if, and this is the really interesting part, if like whoever I was working with had already reached out in some way to them. So if someone was praying to like an archangel, for example, they would come in to their session and do like a healing for them, or an Ascended Master would come through, which is so cool. And then I had an experience with Kali. You know, the goddess Kali?
Yes.
I had an experience with her, and that was very funny.
What happened?
She I was like clearing the house, and she, so I do it like remote viewing kind of way. I was clearing the house, you know, freshening things up a little bit. And so I was doing like a final blessing at the end, wrapping things up. The house was fantastic, brought in a whole bunch of new energy, you know, that we want to live in, and, you know, so it was, you know, had this deliciousness to it. And then all of a sudden, this woman came dancing through the back door with this drum, and she just kept dancing throughout the whole house. And I was like, who's this? And I didn't know who she was. And I'm thinking, I've just cleared like a whole bunch of stuff. Like now someone's waltzing through the back door. And yeah, it was Kali. And I have this really strong connection with her.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
and I can ask her, like, her I can chat with really just like while I'm vacuuming or something, I can just have a conversation with her, which is quite nice.
Well, that's what
really
we do now. That's what we do now.
Yeah.
We thought we were talking to ourselves the whole time, but we were actually, you know, becoming more specific, right? I mean, it's natural, and you can also be conscious about it. But I mean, to me, what I find most intriguing is, for myself personally and observing other people, is this energy is coming down more and more and more every day. And I know we're in the eclipse corridor, and there's other dates, and there always is. But it's just not stopping. And somehow or another, we are formulating new lives through it all. And most of it doesn't make any sense in terms of where we came from. And it makes all the sense in the world in terms of what we're building, but we still don't understand it.
Yeah. Well, I think like that our logic gets in the way a lot because we try to make sense of things too much. And I know it does for me. It definitely does for me. I try to make sense of things. But then once I get kind of put that to the side and I just look at it for what it is, and if I want help with something, I just lean into, the electromagnetic kind of metaphysical aspects of who we are, and I get some answers.
Yeah, like the morphogenic field.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, and I think that's what we're learning to do. Yeah, is we yeah. I mean, for each one of us and different parts of us, it's harder to say, oh, I can do that, but we can actually do that, and the more of us that do it, because that's a very conscious act, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
something you have to seek. We've all had things that have come to us in different ways, but to actually go tap into it and engage it and actualize it, that's important both in, I guess, the etheric as well as the physical. Like
mm,
really embodying that and making decisions, as so many of us have over the last 10 years, living these crazy lives. You know what I mean? Like we
yeah,
listen to this guidance overall.
yeah. And like
And
I
yeah.
know we do that. Like it's powerful things can happen, and that's when we get like those breakthrough moments, and we just can't see it at the time. And but in hindsight, we can see like the universe has always got our back, and
Mhm.
we're being guided like very specifically and in a lot of ways that we're just not aware of.
Do you get collective information? Like what you feel is collective, like a hint of what's happening right now?
Yeah, I can, because I find it quite overwhelming in a lot of ways too. But I can definitely perceive it, and most of the time, um, I think it's good to have that awareness and be aware of what's unfolding for a lot of people and like where they're at, and just have a lot of compassion for them, and because they might not be kind of at that point yet, realize that they can actually do something about it, and
Mm.
which I fully respect. And
Mm.
everyone's journey is so different, and so I have a lot of compassion for them, and I can feel it. I can feel like the challenges and the anger and the frustration, and but also like you find because there are the things that we expect to kind of tap into and we expect to see, but then we can also like tap in and see that people are trying so hard to make, from most of the time it's from an unconscious place, and they're not aware of kind of what they're doing, but they're just trying so hard just to be decent people,
Mm.
and spend time with their family, and do what's important to them. And
Yeah.
like that layer of like the collective kind of energy, I think is so beautiful, because that's who we all are. Like at our core, we're all loving people, and we all hold a level of light. We all have that light within us, just at different degrees. You
Human
can definitely tap
beings.
in.
Human beings. Human beings, right?
Yeah.
How long have you been with your partner?
Ah, I think 8 years. We're going on
8 years.
8 years.
So
Yeah.
basically it's an ascension relationship, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I accidentally manifested my husband.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That was that was funny. So uh when I was writing my second book, I decided I would make myself like a character in this book, and I would write it under a pen name. And so I just made up a fiance for myself, like a character that, um, that was my fiance for this book. And it was so funny. Like, so many of like, I had got his name correct. I chose his name in my book, same name as my husband. Um, his nationality, his family dynamics, what he did for a job, and like having his own business in IT, like, stuff like that.
To you got it all right.
Yeah, I got it all right.
That's
And like
amazing.
conversations that I wrote about played out like verbatim as well. I'm like, what's
Wow.
going on here? And then
Wow.
even like I had this moment. I just made up, you know, a character profile for this character, and I decided that he had an ex-girlfriend who used to be a dancer who liked to bake for him, and
And it came
just
true?
ran.
It came true?
Yeah, my
Wow.
husband has an ex-girlfriend who used to be a dancer who liked to bake for him.
Only on Soulogy you hear stories like this.
Yeah,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. It's pretty cool. But he was an accident, like
Well, it
know.
sounds like yeah, you know, the goddess dreams it and then it happens.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot's been said about the masculine and the feminine through all these years, right?
Mhm.
The dance, the new balance, back to the original balance, the mother goddess energy and all that. Has your relationship reflected like what's happened, collectively, to the earth as the energies have come into balance? Have you felt those fluctuations?
We we're a pretty good complement for each other, and like we're both up leveling at the same time, and so my husband has, but in different ways. So my husband will, like, he likes his processes and ways of doing things, which is really good. Whereas I'm more the creative side, and like that. So we are like the masculine and the feminine energies of that, and like
Mm.
we live in harmony together. And then when one of us falls kind of short, the other one kind of helps out.
Mm.
So this really good like complement to
Yeah.
each other, and we balance each other out, and we can like draw in those other qualities from one another when we need them. And what I think is really cool is like throughout this whole process, like ascension and awakening, sometimes it can pull like relationships further apart, and people can have like some conflict, as like roles change, and even challenges with boundaries and that sort of stuff. But we're in this dance, and like we just move with each other, and yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, that is true. It's crazy. That's cool. It's very cool.
I think you would get that too.
What?
The just like the being able to move like wherever you kind of need to, and
Yeah.
evolve
Well,
in a way
yeah.
meaningful for you.
Yeah.
And there's no like, yeah.
Yeah, I think the familiarity, the kindredness, the recognition, you could call it soul recognition that we have with people, particularly those that get, have, more and more magnetism or whatever you want to call it. That doesn't go away.
No.
It's unwinding through all the programs, and it's really not even a personal thing. I mean, it's a collective program. We all were subjected to it, and I think we're unraveling. And I guess you could say reconnecting or seeing what's left there, which is all there is, right?
Yeah.
And I guess, everybody plays a different role. The code's always being exchanged, it's not linear. Like if you look at the linear, you and your husband are like a front runner of carrying that frequency of that mutuality, right? I mean,
Mhm.
and there's got to be a bunch of other ones. I mean, I think we're starting to see all the inner work that we've done on ourselves
Mhm.
and what the results of that are becoming outside of our very personal existence.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can see like the impact we're having
Yeah,
and what we're capable of.
yeah, yeah,
I
exactly.
think that's starting to unravel for a lot of people, and that
Yeah.
feeling of limitlessness.
Well, there's a few things that we can look at. if we if we look back, that we're all the same. And a lot of it, you have to say, from the human perspective, is conceptual. So soul, physicality, etc. But it's the journey, the journey. Whether it's the human, the soul, the human or the soul, or all, you know what I mean? We have that in common. And I think the part of it that we have all acknowledged has been the traumas and the BS and all that. But we've actually done the work on ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's what we have in common. That's our power. To
Yeah.
acknowledge in the other what you have within yourself, right?
Absolutely.
That's a powerful, if you think about it in the energetic field, as a lot of people, like, you can see it, like rise above the earth and see what it actually looks like. That would be so powerful. Just watching the individual souls who thought they were just 1 out of 8 billion, and they explode. And it looks like 8 billion exploded. That's what's happening.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love it. And I think I have a real kind of playfulness with the energetics of who we are and how complex we are and how we interact and with each other and in ways that, you know, we're not fully aware of. But yeah, and being able to notice, like, at that level, like you were just describing, is really cool. It's really cool. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Test, test. Okay. That was weird. That was very weird. Yeah, what's your feeling like for the rest of the year, going into next year? You know, I mean, what's your feel for, like, I guess, our potential, or the level of our awareness collectively, and the connectivity and continuity between souls, the network, the new grid, however you want to put it.
I think whatever we're going through now is like a precursor for like new gifts and abilities that we're going to need, like leading into next year or over the next few months.
Mm,
Like, I feel like whatever we're kind of letting go of now is really, really relevant for something that's coming. But it's to help us, like, see that situation and see what's coming from an easier place.
right.
So, like, I really feel that any kind of disruption or like any triggers that are coming up, and it feels like one after the other, and like in really quick succession. Um, and I think that's, you know, that's our gentle nudge, like, to clear it all out, because those triggers, like, are going to get in the way of what's coming, and they're the things that are going to hold you back for that next kind of wave of
Mm,
what's going to unfold. And I can feel that, and I think there's going to be um, something where, like, it's a good way to describe it. Like, we'll be challenged in some way, I think.
you think?
Is it good?
There
Yeah.
hasn't been any challenges lately, has there?
No.
See, that's one thing.
I think
Huh?
I think yeah, there's definitely something brewing. Like,
Oh,
I
absolutely.
can
Absolutely. Something's
yeah.
brewing big.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
ready to rock and roll.
I
Like,
can't believe I've done 3 shows in one day. I feel this show has been absolutely um, multi-dimensional.
yeah,
It's
it's
just
so cool.
it's like you can feel when these things hit. I think for me, there's been like 3 in the last 10 days. There's
Oh, really?
moments, yeah, these moments where, it's, I don't know if it's a time anomaly or a timeline shift, or I don't know what it is, but it's like a quirk, or not a glitch. It's more like almost like like picture like a TV screen that has a bunch of white snow, and as the image starts to come in, it like
Hmm.
starts to come in and finally locks in. That's what it feels like to me. but at the same, it feels like a birth. It feels like a death and a birth at the same time. But
Yeah.
physically, like atmospherically, like it just feels like, and very, very imminent, like
Yeah.
days.
You're
Um,
really sensitive.
no, no,
Like
that
you.
doesn't come from me. That comes from things I pick up mostly from other people. Not too many
Okay.
people, but um, no, I'm just saying it. And again, too, I think it's all about what you feel right this moment. It doesn't matter who said what. But more and more
Mhm.
people are saying the same thing.
We're
Yeah.
definitely noticing it. We're definitely noticing it. And I think it's those, if we just notice what's going on with ourselves and put logic aside. So I think that, that doesn't really help. Like it's a very practical thing to have, but it doesn't help.
Hmm.
To make sense of like these big like influxes coming in, it doesn't help with that because you can't make logical sense of
That's what I
something
was
that's
saying
not.
earlier. We're carving out these new existences, these new
Mm,
lives through all of that, and they all look different, but they all look the same. It's weird. It's weird. It's just weird. It has no resemblance to the old past, yet they're
mhm.
still standing right next to you, and somebody could be in the inversion of that and just as balanced, and you're at the same frequency. I mean, it's crazy. It's like
It's cool.
full acceptance of everything. Oh my
Yeah,
God,
absolutely.
what a day! It's not even
Yeah.
over yet. Yeah, we're gonna make some music in an hour and a half, so that ought to be interesting. Because my I don't know, today just feels like a really big day. I know it's the fourth over there, but the third here, uh, huge, huge. Thank you for coming in, and best to you and your partner, your husband. I love that. That's my takeaway today. It's like we are each other's children, inner children, or what'd you say? Something like that. That's cool. That's
I
very
can't
cool.
remember. It was in the moment. I can't remember, Todd.
This couple came on and they had an exercise um, where they would pull up each other's inner child or inner teenager.
Mm,
That's pretty bold. But to have
that's
yeah, like when I said you have kids, you're like, no, we are each other's kids. I mean, that's pretty much the same thing. That's pretty cool. That's
yeah.
something to think
I
about.
partner with my inner child. Like she,
Mm.
if I want help with something, I get her to help me out.
Mm. Yeah.
Because she's so like free and she's just, she doesn't have a lot of the energetic, you know, blockages that you have. I have as an adult. She doesn't have that.
She
So
doesn't
she's
care.
just who it is.
Yeah, she doesn't care what people think.
That's right.
That's why we should be children.
Yeah.
One of the
And
reasons.
she'll tell spirit to go away. Like, no thanks. See you later.
Well, you take care. All blessings to you and yours.
You too. Thank you, Todd.
All right. We'll see you later. Take care.